still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought.
She ran into Helen as she rejoined the party. I was beginning to worry, Helen said to her. I was at the ladies. I saw that woman who looks exactly like you going after you. Yes, Helen, the rumors are true. Body talk is my mother. Oh, for once Helen was speechless. Close your mouth, Helen. Here comes Chuck, and I think I still owe you an introduction. Mma watched, fascinated as a different kind of shock overcame Helen. She adjusted her clothes self-consciously. He came with that beauty queen? Helen, you don't give yourself enough credits. Helen possessed a bone structure every model would be proud of. She had the regal beauty and charisma of an ancient African queen. Mma looked at the flashy beauty queen in the company of Chuck. The girl with all her pampering didn't hold a candle to Helen, and she didn't care if she was biased. Chuck walked up to them and she could feel Helen become more fidgety with nervousness. If this is not the girl that caged my brother, he laughed, and he is hardly complaining. Congratulations, I never thought I would see the day, but of course, what man wouldn't pray to be shackled if the woman is you? Flattery, but thanks all the same. The dratted man looked through her. Helen was livid. She could have been one of the decorations for all he noticed. She wanted the ground to open up and swallow her. She didn't realize Mma was making the introduction till she touched her. Helen managed a smile for the conceited man. She knew what a catch her smile was. Let me see you look through that, handsome, the smile seemed to say. Chuck hadn't noticed the girl or thought to give her a second look till she smiled, and her face seemed to come alive. He couldn't help it, he smiled back. I'm a big fan of yours, she heard herself say, and wondered where such sophistication came from. Really? He felt something tug at his heart, something strong and foreign, and was gone immediately. Helen turned to Mma. Actually, I was coming to make my excuses. I have to leave now. You know how busy and rough it is going to be for us tomorrow. Helen surprised herself by such regal sophistication. Before Mma could respond, Helen turned to Chuck. It was nice meeting you. I hope you would come to our fashion show. We wouldn't dream of missing it. Very well then. If you will excuse me, Helen began to walk out. Please stay a little longer. I am about to throw the bouquet. Helen smiled and nodded. Chuck watched her go and chuckled. Who is she? Helen. We are in the same line of business, she told him, still a bit confused at the new Helen and the drama she had just pulled off. Mma was pleased. She didn't know if the girl did it on purpose, but she had given Chuck a challenge to chase, and Mma was sure that Chuck was intrigued. She felt hands go round her waist, and she knew it was Uche. I thought you had lost your way, babe. I was just talking to Chuck. She managed a smile. Chuck was already being distracted by his beauty queen girlfriend. I believe we should thank our guests and leave. The party is hardly over, she was alarmed. We don't have to wait for it, I've had enough. He began to lead her to their chair. Her heart pounded and she was suddenly very afraid. She watched as Uche signaled the famous comedian hosting the reception, and before she knew it, it was time to throw her bouquet at the waiting spinsters. She threw the flower and there was a mad rush for it, but Helen raised it up smiling at her. Mma smiled back. The bachelors began to urge Uche to throw her hose at them. She said no to him, shaking her head slightly, but he laughed and drew her closer to him. She was very embarrassed as he lifted the already short gown slightly up. Higher! Higher! They shouted at him. Sorry guys, that's all the peeping you are getting. There were more cheers as he slowly pulled down one of her stockings and threw it at them. They made a rush for it, but it landed where Chuck was quietly sitting, sipping wine and ignoring everyone. He looked up puzzled. Uche began to laugh. I hope I didn't throw that in vain. Sure you did. I wasn't among the aspiring. Unless the girl who caught the flowers is cute. Sure she is, and she's over there. He turned to where Helen was smiling and talking to one of the girls working for Mma. He raised his eyebrows and smiled. Thankfully, he didn't believe in superstitions. Not the cutest one I've ever seen. He then laughed and got up to slap Uche at the back. The cheering began again. Mma smiled secretly. Her plans for Helen and Chuck seemed as if it was going to work out after all. She doubted if Helen knew the first thing to do with a man like Chuck, but it would be fun to watch. Hope you can tame this untamed gentleman. Are you kidding? That's what makes him so endearing. Now that's a girl to tempt me to an altar. Next thing, Uche grabbed her hands and walked out amidst cheers and confetti. Where are we heading? I thought we should stay the night at one of our hotels. It is our honeymoon after all, and a honeymoon suite has been prepared for us. She felt a fresh wave of fear wash all over her. A wedding night? Was she really ready for that? She heaved a sigh. She didn't know how to feel, but she was sure of one thing though. They needed to talk. You've gone very quiet. Just mulling over everything. I guess it hasn't dawned on me yet. Open your eyes, babe. This is real. Yes, but the circumstances we married, the fact still remains that we are now husband and wife. And it is our wedding night. So don't start getting funny ideas. She stared at him. She could feel he was angry. Was it because she didn't believe him? Was it something else? She wisely decided to keep quiet until they got to their destination and talked. The prospect alone was chilling and scary. She watched as they drove into the 5-star hotel. A doorman opened the door for them and ushered them into the hotel. Congratulations, sir, the man greeted them. They got the same greeting as they walked through the reception area and into the elevator. A cold shiver ran through her spine as it dawned on her what was going to take place here. Nervously, she turned to Uche. He was tipping the bellboy who had carried their luggage. As soon as the boy left, she stared at him. It's beautiful. She smiled nervously. Uche scanned the room. Yes, he agreed. She was right. The place was beautiful and meant for newly married couples who are in love. Were they still in love? When she didn't believe him, his heart was broken, and for the first time in his life, he knew real fear. The fear of giving someone else that much power over your life. That door leads to the bedroom and then suite bathroom in case you want to freshen up. I believe we need to talk first. Talk about what? He could feel his temper rising. He felt he had an inkling of what she wanted to talk about, and he didn't have the strength to talk about her virginity and why they should wait. Would you like to sit? I would rather stand. I am sorry, Uche. I am now very much aware how much I hurt you when I doubted you. Uche stared at her dumbfounded, not what he was expecting. How come you believe me now? Mma bowed her head in shame. How was she going to tell him that once again Angela's words had priority over his? Angela confessed. He nodded. So if she had not confessed, there wouldn't have been the tiniest chance in your mind that I was telling the truth? She trailed off. When? Have I ever given you the reason to doubt my words? How did Angela become more important? That her actions and thoughts were all that mattered to you and not the man you say you love? I am sorry, but I've had nothing but disappointments from people I love. They all left. My mom when I was a baby, my dad when I was just 16, and you left too. What was I supposed to do? Occupy your house till you believed me? You never came back. I was distraught and heartbroken. I wasn't thinking straight at that moment. If I hadn't lost all my money, we wouldn't be here today. And somehow, it all came back to being my fault? I have trust issues, yes. What else do you want? I am trying to apologize here. She wiped her tears. And doing a very bad job at it. I am just so sorry, she cried and ran to the bedroom. Uche heaved a sigh. He felt like an ogre seeing her tears. He wanted to go after her, but couldn't take the step. What a wedding night, he thought. He then saw the small bag Tessie had packed for her. She would need that, he thought. Besides, their dinner was getting cold. Mma lay on the rose petal covered bed, crying. He was right, and she had just realized she was indeed a mental case. Because how did she go from apologizing to blaming him? What was she going to do next? How was she going to rekindle the feelings they once had? A knock on her door brought her head up and she quickly wiped her tears. Dinner is getting cold. You should use the bathroom, or do you want to eat first? I would freshen up first. She stood up. Tessie helped me pack this. Thank you. I was worried I had nothing to change into. He smiled and walked out of the bedroom. She had a refreshing bath. Still uppermost in her mind was her wedding night. Aside from the honeymoon suite, there was no other indication that he wanted to consummate their marriage. Did he still want her? Was he still crazy about her? If he didn't touch her, what would that mean? And what would she do? She thought as she stood in front of the mirror. She took the bag Tessie packed for her and brought out the only clothing in the bag and shook it out. It was a white nightgown. Where did Tessie get this? She asked herself, puzzled, and her eyes widened as she saw the style of the gown. How could Tessie do this to her? How was she supposed to wear this in his presence? This wasn't one of her designs, though she seemed to recognize Helen's style in the design. There was no way she was going to wear this. I can't, she said aloud. A knock came to the door. Uche was growing impatient. It is time you come out. She heaved a sigh, wore the nightgown, and reluctantly opened the door and stepped out. She walked out of the room without waiting to see his reaction. Uche gaped at her. He was speechless. This woman really wanted to torment him. Was this her way of punishing him for forcing her into marriage? By wearing that flimsy excuse for a nightgown? Dazed, he went to sit opposite her. But that didn't help at all because through the lacy cups of the nightgown, he could see everything. He prayed for strength, but he wondered how his prayers were going to be answered with the kinds of thoughts that were going through his mind. Didn't she realize what a bundle of temptation she was to any warm-blooded man? And here she was wearing practically nothing and expecting him to be a saint? A saint, he thought. She never asked that of him. Not that night anyway, and definitely not by wearing that. Mma ate in silence. The food was quite delicious, but in her mouth, it tasted like dust. She prayed for time to fly, so she could escape to the sanity of her bedroom. Escape? She asked herself. This is your wedding night, young lady. She watched as he poured the drink. She was mesmerized by the mood. It was complemented by the sound of love songs coming from the musical set. She had to link her hands together to keep them from reaching out towards him. She wanted to relax on his body. She wanted to close her eyes and feel his heartbeat with his powerful hands around her. She wished she hadn't gone to his house and found Angela, or this could have still been the honeymoon of her dreams. But here she was unsure of what to do and where to stand. For us tonight and forever, he toasted. She echoed him and sipped from her cup. It would be a waste not to dance to this song. It was another love song. He stood up and offered her his hands, and she put her hands in his and stood up. As they danced, the lyrics of the music wafted from the set and seeped into their bone marrows. Uche said a silent thank you to the artist for helping him to say the very words he couldn't find the strength to say, but wanted desperately to. As the music expressed his feelings, he drew her closer into his arms. She tightened her hands around his neck, and he felt her shiver from the sheer closeness, and he couldn't resist planting a kiss on her forehead and her neck. Instinctively, she raised her face for his kiss. He couldn't hold himself back. When he lifted her into his arms and started striding towards the bedroom, not one word of protest escaped her lips.
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought of you. You're the one I can't let go. In your arms I find my home. Love, sweet love.